By the mid-70s, Ireland was a nation on the slide. Unemployment was rising, the cost of living was rising, inflation was rocketing. There were bus strikes, bin strikes, bank strikes. Everybody seemed to be picketing or marching or protesting. In the south, the economy was in tatters. In the north, society was fracturing. The island was in turmoil, and people were looking elsewhere for solutions. The next great wave of emigration, though we didn't know it at the time, was already underway. In 1976, Horslips released The Book of Invasions, a Celtic symphony. It was to be the first episode in a trilogy that would revisit the myths and legends touched on in the Táin and attempt to bring the story up to date. It was also the vehicle that would see the band, like thousands of others, turn to the West and take on America.
It was only when The Book of Invasions came out and we went to America that we realised that the first two albums had actually prepared the groundwork because they'd been really well received at college radio, which we hadn't realised. So all of the people who had been at college radio had graduated and were now in daytime radio. And so they were happy to go with, The Book of Invasions. And off we went and started touring.
That thrill of it, going there, was magic. It really was magic. And scary and fun and exciting because we thought we were going to be the biggest thing in the world, because you've got to think you're going to be the biggest thing in the world. Otherwise you're going, I'm off home.
I think people my age who grew up just, in the pre-U2 Ireland had some sense, as Irish people still do, I think, that you haven't really made it unless you've made it in America. It's a bit like the kind of 19th century thing, the uncle who went off to America and made it is really the one who the family tend to talk about.
What I do remember, and it was one of the coolest things I ever saw, was a photograph of Horslips walking down Fifth Avenue. I thought, that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Just the state of them and the Empire State Building behind them and the clothes they were wearing. And when I first went to America myself and got your photograph taken on Fifth Avenue, with the Empire, that's what I was thinking. I just thought, what do I look like? Do I look like the boys now?
I couldn't understand how important a band they'd been, and I kind of came into contact with them through being in a band. I've been brought in for interview by Eamon Carr, who is now working in FM 104. And at this stage we were starting to take off and tour America and release albums properly, and there was nothing you could tell Eamon that would impress him. It's nothing, we're going to America, Eamon. Yeah, I know it well. I toured there for, God, it was years,
Every day was different. Every town was different. Every city was different. Every reaction was different. Certain states, it almost seemed as if we were in another parish of Ireland or whatever, in that the response was huge. Other places, we were met with sort of a mixture of bewilderment and almost anger that, men in high-heeled shoes playing fiddles in the deep south. Funnily enough, it didn't necessarily go down that well. Whereas in the industrial north, it seemed to be much more acceptable. So it was most peculiar.
Then the stories off the cuff about Horslips, they could never be repeated, which made anything we'd been up to seem like, just Boy Scouts adventures. It was just, we weren't in the same league as Horslips. This is becoming very apparent.
You couldn't really tell the truth. You couldn't tell the truth. Even this is not going to tell you the truth. The truth is painful. Not necessarily a thing of beauty.
I think a kind of aura of heroism attached itself to the Horslips simply for giving it a go. This was an era when, to be second best in Ireland was a great thing. It was pre-Roy Keane. It was before the era where we thought we could win the World Cup. I remember again reading a poll in the NME as a kid that described Rory Gallagher as the second best guitarist in the world. Jimi Hendrix was the best. And for an Irish person to be second best at anything was just cause for rejoicing, We then followed the Book of Invasions with what we thought was this next step, the
Irish people who emigrated to America were perceived as aliens.
I went to see them in Britain for the first time around then on the Aliens tour, which I thought was them at their absolute best, in fact. I mean, however much I'd adored The Town and the Book of Invasions and stuff, something happened with Aliens that the whole thing crystallised for once in something that was very identifiably Horslips and uniquely Horslips. Even their stage show, I mean, at that stage they were sort of looking willfully kind of scuffed, like exiles or emigrants or something. Something about the way the amps were kind of falling to bits or something at that stage. The whole aura around them was just brilliant.
I do remember, quite distinctly hearing the first time a Horslips record went into the American Billboard charts. We were in Jackson's Hotel in Ballybuffet, and this will tell you how long ago it was. A telegram arrived. And we were in bed. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, Somebody comes up and knocks on the door and says there's a telegram, And of course, wow, this is it, the new Fleetwood Mac. So of course, fellas hopped out of bed and started banging other fellas' doors, and there was lads running up and down the corridor in the nip, banging other fellas' doors. We're in the church, you hear that? We're in the church. Of course, I mean, something like that is a bit surreal, I
think Aliens is their best record. Because also perhaps it's the one that brought the story most up to date. It was great to sort of just bring it up that bit closer to the Irish in America, the Irish in exile. Just brought it that bit closer. And I think also at that stage made its impression on what the work I was doing with the Radiators, in the sense that it made Ghost Town possible. It made a contemporary Irish concept album sort of possible,
It's the job of a musician to listen, absorb and create. It's the job of a record company to sell. As much as Aliens meant to the likes of Phil Chevron, and despite the fact that it charted, other, less subtle disciplines were also being applied.
As a record company executive said to me, he said, "It's a concept album about a potato famine. You've got to be kidding." So we sort of thought, but perhaps maybe this is not exactly the commercial whiz we thought it might be. Anyway, but again, it charted and did the business in certain areas and so on. And then it went towards The Man Who Built America.
See him driving those golden nails that hold together the silver bars. Then one day gonna take us to the stars, 'cause he's the man who built America. See him walking that golden wire.
The Man Who Built America was the third part of the trilogy of albums that had started with the Book of Invasions. Viewed together, the three do have a through line. The story has a beginning, a middle and an end. But whatever about the content, the difference in style is remarkable.
And all you golden children of the sun, he's falling to you each and every one, 'cause he's the man who built America.
Horslips, the well-known gang of Dublin drinkers, were first formed as a miming rock group for a Harp lager commercial. Not many people know that. We had hoped to have them in the studio, but they're off to America with their brand new album. However, we have managed to get hold of some film of them playing one of the tracks from the album. This is The Man Who Built America, Horslips.
We actually ended up going into a recording studio for the very first time with Barry, and I think we probably had 3 hours to demo 3 songs, so there was no sitting around musing over what we were going to do. It was literally get in there, get the gear set up, get the drum sound, and then just go for it.
We came into the studio and we were sitting down, we were all getting ready to sort of play what we were doing, and then he said, looking around as if he was going to produce something illegal, he said, "Would you like to hear a new Horslips single?" I said, yeah, we really would. And he put it on, and our little demo sounded so, sort of, it just sounded like a it didn't sound at all. It had no sound. And then this just extraordinary thing came on. They'd just been to America with a serious American producer. Steve Katz, I think was his name. It was the man who built America.
And he knows that. The hands that built America. You too, for that song, The Gangs of New York. The man that built America.
A song that years later I was to rip off and nearly won an Oscar. Did win a Golden Globe. Called The Hands That Built America. So
Are there be any chance related? I'd better say nothing about that, or the legal people will be up my arse.
You can rob your friends. You can rob your friends. As long as you have your arm around them and you're telling them. Barry, does this offend you? Not at all, Bonner, no.
And the moral of this little tale? Well, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And just in case you're wondering how the rest of that demo session went,
The results, were great. They went across the desks of many record company executives in the UK. Unfortunately, we didn't get a deal out of them, but it was the first demo.
a bit of context here. While Horslips were recording and releasing Aliens and the Man Who Built America, elsewhere the Sex Pistols had released Nevermind the Bollocks. The Clash were about to release London's Calling. There was a new wave of music sweeping towards America from Europe, and in America the airwaves were ruled by FM rock. Big, lush, highly produced guitar sounds, extravagant vocal harmonies. Horslips were truly neither one thing nor the other. So where to next?
Unfortunately, by the time we started charting in Billboard, we were getting close to being burnt out. We were working too hard for too long, and it had taken its toll. Plus, at that time, the whole kind of musical landscape was shifting around us. I mean, we were playing sort of inventive, cleverly worked out stuff, and within the space of 6 months, inventive, cleverly worked out stuff was a very, very unhip class thing to be at. On The Man Who Built America, there was a complete absence of the traditional instrumentation, for example, that had, was the hallmark, if you like, of all the earlier records. And America was full of guitar rock bands who had probably better vocal harmonies than Horslips.
To tell her I'm just leaving for a day. I'll be waiting, you know I'll be waiting. So take.
I remember somebody told me that the moment when Carr realised that this is all over, it was all over. They were in a limousine and in America, and a guy come over from Radio on the Gaeltacht to interview the man. Lockhart was in the back of the limo giving this interview to this guy, and Carr was in the front.
Tá muid géist le banna cosúil Farn agus Boston agus duine mar sin fuin mór agus ráir agus sinan sais sinan áit an bhfuil muid a gol.
And Carr said, oh,
Let's translate that.
we're looking for a big heavy sound like Boston. So no, we're not. Rock and roll always had that divide, where you're going to be the Velvet Underground or where you're going to be Led Zeppelin. And that was the choice, the core choice you had to make.
You have these experiences when you're a kid. It's really, they're almost like, as close as I can to a religious experience. Going and seeing bands was really getting zapped by the wand. And this one year, it was 1978, I believe, Horslips happened to be in San Francisco playing. I must have been about 15 or 16. And the record was The Man Who Built America, was what they were touring, I believe. And I walk in, and Horslips are on stage, and they're playing all these Celtic instrumentals, rock band style, which I'd never heard before. It was sort of my first introduction into Celtic influenced rock, and I do have a little Celtic blood in me, so it spoke to me in that way. And then they do this just thrashing version of Shakin' All Over.
Shaking all over.
I mean, I was like, God damn! I just went home and learned it, got out the Who Live at Leeds. It's not, they were playing it better than the Who, god damn, you know? And I remember the guitar playing was just incredible. So for years, I always had this romantic vision of that night. Fast forward 25 years, and Counting Crows are in Dublin, and Eamon Carr is interviewing Adam and myself for the local paper. We're playing a big show, and you know, God, you're the drummer in Horslips, and we start telling my story about how much that show just inspired me, and I said, yeah, you did this great version of Shakin' All Over, and he just sort of laughed and said, that actually was our road crew were actually on stage. They'd taken our instruments and they were the band that did all the covers, and we were at the bar drinking. So as it turns out, I'm actually not a fan of Horslips, I'm actually a fan of the Horslips road crew. Really excellent guitar player, apparently.
Like we said before, never, ever let the truth get in the way of a good story. Ironically, all this was happening at a time when the band was achieving its greatest level of success in the US. The man who built America had followed Aliens into the charts, to the delight of the record company, who loved it and promised the final push would happen with the next album. Horslips were now as close as they had ever been to breaking America. They weren't to know it, but they were also as close as they would ever get.
You could feel it was almost there, you know. We had done some really big shows in the States. I mean, the shows were really huge, and we'd done a number of them. You were thinking, God, this looks like it's really going to take off, yeah.
We were famously a band with just enough nous to hang ourselves. We had this bizarre unwillingness to do what could be seen to be in some ways the sensible, commercially survivable thing. And funnily enough, for a band who I think were seen to be driven only by commercial instincts by some people, we persisted in not taking the advice of the guys who were out there in the record shops going, what you really need to do is do Man Who Built America 2.
I don't know what Man Who Built America 2 would have been. I don't know if we had a Man Who Built America 2 in us. And I don't know if we'd have wanted long term. I don't know if that would have been long term the best thing for us to be doing. I don't know what that's part of the problem. There wasn't a thing that would have been the best thing for us to be doing at that point.
I think it's important for me to say that I never considered cracking America, conquering America, whatever it was, as the be-all and the end-all. I mean, unfortunately, I'm old-fashioned enough to have sort of thought that what we were doing was actually good fun, and if you had a sort of an audience, that was worth doing what you did. I mean, you did what you did for the sake of it, not necessarily to become as big as Led Zeppelin, and that wasn't the object of the exercise.
Confused, tired, and no longer united band came off the road, back into the studio, to record what would be short stories, tall tales. It wasn't an easy experience. Without the umbrella of the concept, there seemed a lack of direction, or more accurately, any number of different directions. There are some great songs and short stories, but ultimately, that's what it is, a collection of songs.
We knew, even as we worked on short stories and tall tales, that Polygram weren't going to like this. We just kind of knew it. And sure enough, we presented to them, and not liking it was an exaggeration. They hated it. I mean, they ran screaming from the room and said, "Are you guys mad?" And so it was kind of that was to be the last album.
So what happens when a record company effectively withdraws its support? Well, life gets a good deal more awkward. In effect, Horslips had lost ground, back to the point they'd been before the Book of Invasions. To reclaim that lost ground could take years, and that's if everybody had been up for the fight, if everybody had been singing off the same song sheet, if everybody had still been talking.
I think at that stage, I think we sort of probably, or some of us felt that maybe the game was up, that basically there wasn't necessarily, a huge market for this mixture of Irish traditional and whatever you want to call it, glam rock or whatever it was that we had been purveying up to that point.
We weren't really a singles band, we were, a druids band. And there weren't enough druids in the States, I don't know. I don't know, I just remember we went for it as best we could.
But that's a price of fortune a poor boy has to pay. And I was strong to carry on till judgment day.
We were beginning to pull in different directions, which we'd never done. And that generated a certain degree of kind of dissent. We still got on well with each other, but there was no sense that we had another album in us, and that was the key to it. We just didn't look like we had another album in us.
But I was so young and proud and blind. Green starlight carried me to find her.
If you were just a rock and roll band, no problem, you just play rock and roll. We were trying to do something that was a bit more complicated, and so that kind of particular balancing act just became more difficult to do. And I mean, I feel that a large part was it became more difficult to do because we had done most of it.
Short Stories, Tall Tales would be the band's last studio album, and in the spring of 1980, Horslips toured America for the last time.
I regret enormously that we didn't break America. I think no band in the world ever starts out on the basis that there'll be a small band. That's not why you join a band. You want to be the Beatles. We wanted to be the Beatles, only bigger.
And you know they tried so hard to change my mind.
In fact, it took us 9.5 years, to realise we probably have reached our commercial potential. We have already done a great deal that's praiseworthy and that is interesting, and in some ways we have pushed the bar high for ourselves. So the one last thing that I suppose everyone wants, which is that they'd be famous faces and that everybody the world over hums their tunes, was patently eluding us. That wasn't so shameful. It eludes most bands, that's the truth. And we had done, I think, a great deal. So, though, yes, there is enormous regret that you aren't U2 or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. And there's no buts there. Yes.
If ever there was a long, dark night time of the soul, this was it. If America was effectively being surrendered, then what was left? Retreat to Ireland and Europe. And at the height of New Wave, was continuing to tour Europe a realistic notion? Ireland as ever was there to be toured, and tour it they did. But suddenly 10 years seemed an awfully long time, the lack of breaks and holidays, an awfully debilitating reality, the effort, just too much. It had been a grand adventure, but what now? What was next? More of this?
I cried out, no one listened to me. Busy climbing the family tree. Oh, the lines I've wasted.
I remember an American promoter saying to me one night after a gig, it was a snowy night, but indeed it was. And we came out of the gig and we were getting into a bus to drive through the night to another venue, snowbound, wherever, 300 miles away, whatever it was. I think he was slightly worried when he saw the dishevelled Irish boys climbing on the bus. And remember he said, Eamon, he says, you know why you're doing this? And I said, no, I'm not so sure at this point. And he said, well, he says, you do this for a couple of years so that you provide for your family. It's a job. And I think within a year of him telling me that, I was unemployed.
I can't swim and I don't understand this passion for out of the land. I lay low and waited.
We had had such a genuinely blissful time for 9 out of our 10 years that the idea that we would pull at all in different directions hurt like hell.
I mean, the whole point of it was that it was a laugh, and it had stopped being a laugh. And it's like if you put rats in a cage, you know, they stop having fun after a while. So we had kind of stopped having fun, and it was, yeah, if it's not fun, let's knock it on the head, you know.
I'm sinking, I'm drowning, rescue me.
You've got to remember the period. It was 78, 79. Punk had made all the boring old farts question whether they should even be alive. I mean, Zepp and The Who also shipped a lot of water around that time and effectively decided it was time for them to own up and stop. And we kind of slightly felt the same.
I felt that there was something else to do, but because the last kind of year of the band was so exhausting, everyone was pretty wrecked. Having the energy to actually do that, I don't know if I don't think it was there at the time.
And drift to sea alone, searching for a land. I'm sinking, I'm drowning, rescue me.
I forget what words we used, but you know, we used to convince ourselves, well, is it a breakup, or is it are we just disbanding, or are we just taking a break, and there was like spin and PR and whatever and all the rest of it. But essentially we were stopping, whatever. So that was it. We were stopping.
And so the decision was made. The concert in the Ulster Hall on October the 8th, 1980 would be the last one. There'd be no announcements, no emotional farewells, maybe even no remorse.
Why did I know the Ulster Hall was going to be the last gig? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I had to be told, because at the end of it, when we loaded out, for the first time in a long, long time, the gear had to go somewhere and go into storage or go to the various people's homes, because we weren't going on tour any longer. And that's what I was told. This is going to be, Horslips is going to be the last show, so we need to start looking at putting this gear into storage for the time being. So the truck was going back, the lights were going back, and they weren't coming back out in the foreseeable future. The band went on stage in the Ulster Hall in Belfast, the same as always, kids banging on the stage shouting Horslips, 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 and they went straight into it. Opened up with Guest of the Nation, didn't make any reference to the fact that it was the last one, just carried on as normal.
My father died around the same time, and that was the month I chose to give up smoking. I remember actually saying, wow, this was not a good time to give up smoking.
Your life away.
What I do remember is Charles O'Connor, because you don't forget a thing like this, throwing his fiddle out into the crowd. And I remember the noise the crowd made, which is kind of a whoa. This, you imagine like 1,500 people going whoa, and a big deflation of air. And that was very odd.
I took the pickup up and I thought, hang on, if I throw this at the audience, this is how sad we were. What conservatives then? If I throw a violin at the audience, kids might get hurt. You know, I'm thinking, you can't do that, someone will want it. And they'll either wreck it anyway, or someone will get thumped.
He broke it, and he threw it out into the crowd. And this broken fiddle, arching out through the light, over the heads of the crowd, was like, that was it. That was like a bit of sealing wax on the end of it.
I can still see that fiddle going into the hands, you know. That's an abiding memory, yeah, definitely, yeah. That's the last snapshot of the gig.
the end of the night, they came back for a second round of encores, which they hadn't done for a long, long time, and did the Rolling Stones' "This Will Be the Last Time." That was House Lights' last note from Horslips ever.
10 years, over 2,000 shows, lights out.